we are going to present Ravis. So welcome, Ravis. I'm very happy to introduce you. So Ravis Henry is from the US, and the presentation is The Night Sky Through Navajo Eyes. Ravis Henry belongs to the Navajo Towering House clan and is born for the Coyote Pass-Jemez Clan of the Navajo Tribe. He originates from the place called Alamo, New Mexico, but was born and raised and still resides in the Canyon de Chelly, Chinle, so sorry if I mispronounce something, Arizona, where he is currently a park ranger with the National Park Service since 2009. He works in the field of interpretation and education, sharing the stories and history of his people with visitors from all around the world. Ravis is a traditional knowledge holder and storyteller for his people, and he's learning the ancient ceremonial ways of the Navajo. He is also an artist, silversmith, creating pieces inspired by the stories of the land and his people. In this presentation, Ravis will introduce the Navajo perspective of the night sky, briefly sharing the stories of how the stars came to be, the Navajo constellations, and the stories behind them. So thank you, Ravis, and you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen here in a bit. Okay, can you confirm if my screen is being shared?
Perfect, beautiful.
Thank you. Let me first introduce myself, as it was stated, but I want to introduce myself formally in my native language. So if you can bear along with me for the moment here. Yaate ado yaate anol soshe ya Ravis Henry dashijine kia anin shnedo ma eteshkijni bashichin ashin hedashiche dot nasani dashinale ado I see late east so that na sha kunde Chinle geshido kwe say has agishiya ho ado ati kwe ke hashte kutaya tayet ni tilken shnedo ni ho ka di the ne apelash la inshla. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in this beautiful world. My name is Ravis Henry, and I am of the Navajo Tribe of the Southwest region of the United States. And my clans, which are part of my identity, I am Towering House Clan, born for the Coyote Pass-Jemez Clan, and my grandpas are of the Salt People Clan and Tango People Clan. And I originally come from a place called Alamo, New Mexico. That's where my mother is from. That's where my grandmother and grandfather resided. And that's where my umbilical cord is buried. And that's where my roots are. But I was born in Chinle, Arizona. And I was raised most of my life with my father's family out in Chinle, Arizona, in the area of Canyon de Chelly. And Canyon de Chelly National Monument is one of our beautiful parks. That's a part of the National Park Service system here in the United States. So just a little bit about where I'm at. I work with the National Park Service in the field of interpretation with the Southern Four Corners groups of parks, and that includes Canyon de Chelly National Monument, the Hubble Trading Post National Historical Site, and Navajo National Monument. But my focus area and my work site is at Canyon de Chelly. And in Navajo, we call this place Tseyit, which translates to within the rocks. And it's a beautiful park in the middle of the Navajo Nation. It encompasses about 125 square miles of canyons. And in this canyon, we are one of the only park units that still has many people living in the canyon. In other words, the people here, they allow the Park Service to be here. And I am happy to say that, my family is part of that. So I come from this canyon. I literally work at home, and my family has been in this region for generations. And we are still farmers. We are still knowledge holders of the land and the stories. And we take care of our homestead and the ceremonies and the beautiful culture that we have embedded here at Canyon de Chelly. But I'm here this afternoon to speak to you all on a little bit about the stories of the stars. We had some great presentations here by the other two fellas talking about, the scientific aspects of the night sky and how they are being affected by light pollution. I want to take a different approach and share with you all, how we as indigenous people of the land, as Navajo people, see the night sky. So I want to take you on a little journey here just to storytell a little bit about, our perspectives, our views about how things came to be. And our stories of the stars began way back, since time immemorial, a time when there was no sun, there was no moon, there was no sense of time. And in this time, there was a place of darkness. And in this time of darkness is where our people begin our stories. And they talk about how our people migrated from different worlds, from the dark world into the blue world, then migrating into the yellow world and into the glittering world, the world that we live in today. And part of our story talks about the stars. And there's a story of how our deities, as we pronounce them in our language, the holy beings or the holy people, came together to decide, on how they could do something for the people, do something that could motivate and that could remind the people of the many different roles and responsibilities that we have as five-fingered people, on this earth. And one of the ways that the deities decided to do this was to use crystals, use leftover crystals from the creation of the sun and the moon. And using these crystals, these chips and broken pieces of crystal quartz, the talking god and the home god and the black god and the changing woman, the first man, the first woman, all these many other deities came together. And it said that they came to the home of black god, Hashejin. And there at his home, Hashejin, the black god, had a buckskin, a layer, a blanket of deer hide. And he laid that on the floor of his home. And on it were all these broken pieces of crystal quartz. And the deities began to talk, and they began to separate these crystal quartz. Then they began to make different designs, different symbols on this buckskin hide. And when they came up with a design or an image, they decided a story or a teaching that would be tied to that design and image. And when they agreed upon it, they put those crystals up into the darkness, up into the sky. And slowly, little by little, in this darkness of the night sky, stars began to appear. And the deities worked together, putting stars one at a time, different images, different designs with different stories and teachings that would be utilized for us as five-fingered people to remind ourselves of who we are and our role and responsibility as a human being. During that process, it said that the coyote, who we call Ma'i, was a trickster and a very curious individual. He was also a deity as well. And the coyote, through his curiosity, began to see these crystals appear in the night sky, and he was curious on what they were, and he was curious on where they were coming from. So the coyote from there started to wander across the land until he came across the home of the black god, and he saw light coming from inside the home. So he howled out as he normally does and began to make his way to the black god's home. And when he got closer to the home, the deities heard the coyote's howl. They heard him coming. Then the black god and the other deities told the others to be quiet, to sit quietly. We can't let the coyote know what we're doing. Coyote is always coming with bad luck, with bad energy, and he's going to interfere with this process. So it said the black god grabbed the bundle of crystal quartz with that buckskin and hid it behind him. And at that point, the coyote came knocking on the door. He invited himself into the home, and he says, he says, hello, greetings, everybody. What's going on here? And the holy people said to him, none of your business, coyote. We're talking about very important matters, and none of this concerns you. And the coyote was curious still on what was happening, and he tried asking the deities what was going on, and if he could be invited, if he could help. But the deities insisted that the coyote leaves. They asked him to leave, saying that every time he comes, something bad happens. So the coyote got fed up and angry, and he left. He left in anger, running out that door, and he says, fine, I will leave then. And he ran out the door and he howled, and he made it sound like he was running far, far away. He howled really loud, and then it got faint, and then it got quieter and quieter. Soon he stopped howling, and the holy people began to get back to work. They said, the coyote has left, let's get back to work. Black God put the blanket of deer hide back down and the crystal quartz back on top, and the holy people got to work. The coyote, though, didn't actually run away. He made it sound like he went away, but he just ran a short distance from the home, and he hid underneath a juniper tree. He crawled underneath that tree, and he was looking towards the home, and he could see underneath the door into the home of the black god, and he saw these crystals, all these glittering of crystals shimmering on that deer hide. And the coyote's eyes got big, and the coyote got really, really curious and wanted to know what was happening. He soon learned that the deities were taking these crystals and putting them up into the sky. And from there, he ran into the hogan. He ran back into that hogan, catching all the deities off guard. And he went straight to the middle of the hogan where the blanket of deer hide lay. He grabbed that deer hide and he threw it all the way up into the sky, and all those leftover crystal quartz went flying up into the night sky. And he scattered the remaining crystals all across the night sky. And that's how the stars came to be, how we see it today. And they say that the coyote put the blanket back down, and he found one star left on that blanket, and he picked it up and he says, that's what he said, that this star here is going to be my star. All of you put something up there. Now this star is going to be me. And he put this star up into the southern hemisphere. And that's how the stars came to be. The stars in the night sky have always been a very important part for us as Navajo people. For us as Navajo people, especially there at Canyon de Chelly, we've utilized the rock walls, and we've utilized the natural resource to document, our stories, and to remind us of different teachings and events. And there in Canyon de Chelly, we're reminded of how important the night sky is to us. Because in Canyon de Chelly, there are many areas in alcoves, on the ceilings of alcoves and small caves and underneath ledges, where we see symbols like this here on the screen. We see marks of plus signs or X signs. And these are rock art images. These are rock art that were created by our people, our ancestors. And on these rock art images, they might look like crosses and pluses, but these are actually constellations, and these are stars. This is our interpretation of the night sky as Navajo people that our ancestors observed and documented. So the night sky has been a very big, important part of our role as Navajo people. We use it to navigate the night sky. We use the night sky to also remind us of what season we're in and what activities and ceremonies we can practice and we can do. And from there, we have one constellation that doesn't move, or one star that doesn't move. And most of us in the northern hemisphere are able to see this. And this star that doesn't move, majority of us know it as Polaris, also known as the North Star. And that's a very important star for our people, as all the other stars revolve around it. They move around that one single star. And that one star is a symbol of the fireplace. If we look at the night sky and look at it as a home, then that one single star is the fireplace, and everything revolves around it. Just like in our traditional Navajo homes, which are round structures, we enter our home from the east, and inside of our home, in the center of our home, is the fireplace. And when we enter our home, we always go clockwise. We always move around that fireplace. We're always revolving, and that fireplace is considered the heart of the home. It is the light, it is the warmth, it is the energy of the home. And in the night sky, that North Star, the Polaris, is that fireplace of the night sky. It's the heart, it's the center, and everything revolves around it, according to our view, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. And we watch this star throughout the different seasons, and we have different constellations that revolve around it, prominent constellations that we see. And one of those is the Big Dipper. And the Big Dipper, also known as Ursa Major, is one of the most prominent constellations we see from our view here on Navajo land. And we watch it throughout the year, we watch it throughout the seasons. And when we watch it, we have a design, we have a symbol that comes into view. And this is a symbol that our people have been using for thousands of years. We utilize this symbol in our art. We utilize this symbol in our blankets, in our weaving, in our sand paintings. It's depicted on the rock walls in forms of rock art that date back to hundreds and thousands of years. And for us, this symbol, it's a symbol of life. It's a symbol of change through the different seasons, through the times of day, from the sunrise through the blue sky to the sunset back into darkness. It's a symbol of life, representing our 4 stages of life, from birth, childhood, adolescence, to adult years, and back into our elder years, into old age. So this symbol encompasses all of that, and it comes from the night sky as we watch the stars and constellations revolve around that North Star. And this symbol here we identify and call it in our language as Tsunayo Ese, which translates to that twirling logs, which is the motion that we're seeing there. So this symbol here is a very sacred symbol for our people, as it is for many other cultures around the world as well. And we see this in the night sky. But we have many constellations that are significant to the Navajo people, and some of these constellations are shared by other stories and cultures from around the world. In this slide here, you can see 3 photos, and in the center, you can see the image of the fireplace. And that fire is the North Star, that North Star that I've been talking about. We call it Nahokonsbekon. Nahokons is the Navajo word for the northward direction. And Nahokons is actually describing that revolving motion as we look into the night sky, how everything revolves and rotates around that North Star. So that's the term Nahokons. So we call the star here in our language, the North Star, Nahokonsbekon, which is the fire of the north. The image there on your left is the Big Dipper, or Ursa Major, and we call this Nahokonsbekon. And Nahokonsbekon is a symbol of fatherhood. He's a reminder of our roles and responsibilities for those of us who are men, who are male. He's a symbol and a person who represents all of our fathers, our uncles, our grandfathers, our brothers, our nephews, our sons, and our grandsons. And he teaches us, the responsibilities of manhood, fatherhood, what it means to be a caretaker of a home. He reminds us of our responsibility to be the protectors and the one to teach prayer and ceremony to the family and to the children. And he is always rotating around this fireplace and can be seen in the Northern Hemisphere year-round. And opposite from him on the other side of the fireplace is Cassiopeia. And Cassiopeia, for us in Navajo, is pronounced Nahokonspaadi, which is the female revolving one. And she is a symbol of our mothers, She is a representation of our mothers, our aunts, our grandmothers, our sisters, our daughters, our nieces, our granddaughters. And she reminds our people of what it means to be, a woman, the roles and responsibilities of motherhood, to be the first to instill care, love, and compassion into the home, and to teach the basic foundations of life to the children. So she's a representation of our women. These are the three prominent constellations that are very important for us. And these were constellations in our stories created by the holy people with these stories and teachings. Another very important constellation that I want to talk about here is one that we call Dilyeha. And most people know this as the Seven Sisters in the United States, and other places around the world it's known as Pleiades. And Pleiades, or Dilyeha, is one of the constellations that we as Navajo people watch year-round, because this one is one that tells us when to have specific ceremonies and when to do certain activities. And the first activity that's tied to this constellation is our farming and planting. And it's where the Navajo word Dilyeha comes from the Navajo word K'tilya. And K'tilya is a Navajo word for farming or planting. And they say that Dilyeha is prominent throughout the night sky throughout the year, but there's one time of the year where it's very hard and rare to actually see this constellation. And we say that this constellation actually disappears for several weeks from our view and perspective here on Navajo land. And they say that when that constellation of Dilyeha or Pleiades disappears, that's when we plant our seeds. That's when we put our seeds into the ground. And that is when, we take care of our crops in our fields. And this time of year is usually in the month of April, late April through the month of May. They say that if we plant our seeds when Dilyeha is still here, that'll be early to mid-spring. And by that time, Dilyeha, or these seven naughty boys, as we talk about them in our language, these naughty boys here are going to end up destroying our crops by bringing snow and frost to our people and destroying the fields, freezing the seeds. Then they say if we plant our seeds after the constellation reappears in early summer, then it's too late. By that time, if we plant Dilyeha, the boys are going to stop the rains from coming. They're going to increase the temperatures, the heat, and they're going to burn and bake the seeds that are in the ground. So that's why they say that we don't plant, when this constellation is out and about. And then this time of year in October, November, this constellation is actually appearing in the eastern horizon just after sunset. When this constellation appears on that side after sunset, it's a reminder of our ceremonies to begin for the winter, our winter storytelling time, and our big ceremonies like the Nightway Yebiche, which is a 10-day healing ceremony, begins when this constellation reappears to the east. So there's a lot more that I could talk about. There's a lot more that I could share, but I just want to share this much with all of you to kind of just give you an appetizer, if you will, an introduction to our stories and our view, just to share how important the night sky is to us as Navajo people from our cultural perspective. And we have similar constellations like Orion, which to us has a Navajo name of Atsa, which is the slender one, story of warriorship. Then we have Scorpius, which for us is Atsa, which is the elder and the wise one. But we have many more constellations, and obviously we don't have enough time to share all of that. But as an introduction, I want to share this much with all of you. And maybe somewhere down the line, you'll be able to learn more about the cultural aspects, not just of the Navajo, but many of the other Native American tribes in the United States and other indigenous cultures around the world, because, these stories have been around for hundreds and thousands of years, almost longer than the science that many of us can comprehend today. But these stories, they hold a lot of truth, a lot of knowledge. So I encourage all of you guys to take an interest in hearing that perspective. But for now, I want to stop and I want to say aheha to each of you. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak and to share and to enlighten you all with our stories. So, cuidadoles. That'll be all, and I'll hand the floor back over to you all. Thank you.